Shut up and sit down.
Hi, and welcome to RedTooth's Haunted Outdoors podcast. Tonight, I'd like to tell you about the story about White Otter Castle. It's a 3-story log home that Jimmy McOuat built. This is a story of hopes and dreams and curses and a haunting. This 3-story log home is just outside of Kenora, Ontario on White Otter Lake. You can actually get there and visit and go inside the log home. You can get there by canoe or boat, or you could sled in the wintertime. Jimmy built this log home between 1903 and 1914, 11 to 12 years, and he built it out of the red pine there. Carved it all by himself with his hands, block and tackle, and put it together. He actually built this 3-story castle for a woman he hasn't met yet. For a woman to impress a woman to marry her, to live in the castle up in the wilderness. Now, about the curse. When Jimmy was a young boy, he was mischievous, and he did a lot of things. And he threw some kind of a vegetable, a potato or a turnip or something at a well-to-do guy. Anyways, the guy apparently in the story turned around and he cursed Jimmy. And he cursed him and told him that he would never amount to anything, that he would die alone in a shack and be buried in an unmarked grave. Well, years and years later, that always was in the back of Jimmy's mind. Now, Jimmy had money that he invested up in gold mines up there in Kenora and that, and he actually lost his whole fortune in that adventure. So he ended up grabbing a plot of land and building this castle because, the curse was still in the back of his mind, and he didn't want to, die in a shack, which he was living in at the current time. So over these 12 years, he started building his castle to live in, and to attract a woman to his castle so he wouldn't be alone. Now, not only did he build this castle, he also built a tomb, which his wishes were to be buried in that tomb so he wouldn't be buried in an unmarked grave. That's a pretty old log home which still stands today. Like I said, you can still go up there and visit, and they do tours and that sort of thing. But it's not quite as old as the log home that I live in now at White Pine Nuke. This log home here is over 250 years old, and I put the studio in the basement. And I have some stories to tell you about this place and this property, but right now, back to White Otter Castle. Now, unfortunately for Jimmy, part of the curse came true, because 3 years after he finished building his castle, in 1918, he disappeared. And they actually found his body almost a year later, in the spring after. And apparently he had fallen into the river where he was fishing, and he got tangled up in his nets and he drowned. Now, when they found Jimmy's body, he was headless. And I believe he was missing an arm or two as well, which they never found. Anyways, they took Jimmy's body and they took it back to the castle he had built, and they buried him there in a marked grave. So unfortunately for Jimmy, part of the curse came true. He didn't die alone in a shack, but he did die alone. And he didn't get buried in the tomb that he wanted to, but he is in a marked grave right beside his castle that he built. And you can go visit it. Now, many people that have gone there and visited the place have reports of up by the river where he was fishing of a headless figure walking around. It's said to be Jimmy. He's wandering around probably looking for his head. Or maybe he's just at the last place that he was alive at and wandering around. Spirits just hang out the last place they were at. Don't know. But there's also stories of in the castle, people touring it, hearing noises, hearing them calling out, hearing somebody calling out. Things that go bump in the night in the castle. Some spooky things that go along there. So it's an interesting story. Like I said, it's a story of hope and dreams and curses and hauntings. Jimmy still today haunts the last place he was at, White Otter Castle at White Otter Lake. And you can go there and you can visit, and maybe you will hear him, or maybe you will see his headless body walking around. I'm not sure. It's a great story. It's a great place to go visit. Anyways, that's the log home haunted story for today. Thank you for joining me and RedTooth's Haunted Outdoors. Have a spectacular night.